So, what's he got you on? Prozac?
Zoloft. Less side effects.
Has it kicked in yet?
I don't feel like driving my car in front of a truck anymore.
That's a start.
I guess.
I tried all kinds of stuff. Then I told them I used to really get off on speed, so they gave me something with the same molecular structure. And that worked. Gave me a false sense of well-being.
I'd take that. I could use a good lie to believe in.
Got up your dosage, pal.
Greetings, and welcome to Film Drifter. In this episode, I will be featuring another overlooked film that is very dear to me, one that deserves much wider recognition, in my opinion. It is Roger Young's Kiss the Sky from 1999, featuring William Petersen, Gary Cole, Sherly Lee, and Terrence Stamp, among others. Why should someone pay any special attention to this film, you might be asking yourself. Primarily, it is a brilliantly written and wonderfully acted drama about two middle-aged white-collar men and friends who, faced with the realization of the meaninglessness of their way of life, attempt to escape it and find a better way of being. To extend on that, Kiss the Sky is a unique, and to me, an unrivaled commentary on the reality of being a modern man, on finding purpose and happiness in life, very much through the lens of male-female dynamic, as well as devastatingly direct and open in what is communicating. It's beyond shame that this masterful story, that is actually more current today than ever before, slipped under almost everyone's radar, and continues to do so. This review is my humble attempt to give this movie the recognition and respect it deserves, and hopefully a handful or two of new admirers. Let's get right down to it. As I've already laid out, Kiss the Sky is an existential drama released in 1999 about two old-time college friends in their mid-40s living in LA. They're both experiencing dissatisfaction with their upper-class lives, their mundane jobs, their strained, unfulfilling marriages, and the financial pressure of maintaining the high standard of living their family requires. It boasts with a very interesting and respectable cast, although not top-billing stars. The two main protagonists are played by William Petersen, playing Jeff, and Gary Cole as Marty. Later, we are introduced to another key character in the story, Andy, played by Sherly Lee. The remainder of this video contains spoilers, so if you prefer to go into the film fully unaware of all the details of the plot, please skip to my conclusion on the film. Early in the film, Jeff, witnessing Marty's bitterness about his life escalating, becomes convinced that Marty is on the edge of falling apart, and suggests that he joins him in a building project in the Philippines. A project that would take them away from their families for a month, believing it would be a beneficial experience for both of them. Marty agrees, and they travel abroad. On a superficial level, the film up to this point, despite a few quite poignant dialogues already, might appear like a random story about two guys in a midlife crisis, going on an adventure that might lead to some bitter or even tragic events and trials. But this picture delivers far more than the initial impression might lead you to conclude, on which I'll elaborate in my review of the film after this short introduction. After being suggested a lake to visit by a local in an opium den, Jeff and Marty decide to leave Manila for a couple of days and check the place out. They settle in a nearby resort and there encounter a young wandering tourist named Andy, played by Sherly Lee. After an electrifying, intellectual, and sexual experience with Andy by both our protagonists and a day spent with Kozin, a Buddhist monk and a friend of hers, they find a place by the nearby lake where they contemplate on building a sort of spiritual sanctuary. Soon they are called back to Manila to close the construction deal. The next night, on the roof of the hotel where they are staying, with the experience with Andy being sort of a trigger and a catalyst for the internal processes we already witnessed through their earlier dialogues, they come to a realization that it is actually possible for them to abandon their lives and jobs, sell their pension funds and business partnerships, with that take care of their families financially, and finally, still have enough to pursue the dream of building a sanctuary by that lake. This film continues to follow them through this journey, starting with a reunion with Andy and Kozin, soon leading to bitter realizations and surprising final resolutions. It is definitely a film that keeps surprising you to the very last scene. Never getting a proper release on the big screens, the film was denied a chance to find an audience except on television and DVD, and according to all available sources, seems to have fallen into obscurity soon after its release. Kiss the Sky is primarily a story-driven film, a screenwriter's vehicle in this particular case, who is also a producer here. Roger Young, the director, who appears to be specifically picked by the writer, serves here to merely give justice to the script without impairing its quality by personal directorial idiosyncrasies. Primarily known as a TV feature film director, he appears to be someone who has fully mastered the craft, but also someone who displays an obvious talent to capture the right emotions and accent them in the most advantageous and economic manner, through raw directorial choices. A director who is able to give that extra, to bring the human side to the characters and scenes, but without becoming too melodramatic or intrusive, and in the same time able to avoid being the opposite extreme, cold, mechanical, or detached. He proves to be a perfect fit for this script. It is understandable why Eric Lerner, the writer, preferred to have a director like Roger Young on this project. Right from the beginning of the film, we get a taste of what is about to come with Jeff and Marty's dialogue on how did we get here. We establish the core theme of disillusion with modern career-driven existence, or more specifically, with the American dream. But I think by saying the American dream, we limit the scope of the wider message unnecessarily. Almost immediately, we witness Jeff and Franny's post-sex conversation that really drives it home and how challenging this movie is going to be in exploring male and female dynamic.
Will you tell me the truth? You don't really like me, do you?
Excuse me. Would I be doing this with someone I didn't like?
I don't know. You're a woman of remarkable abilities.
Jesus, Jeff. What do you want?
No, I mean, I know that I can turn you on, but you don't really approve of me, do you? Do you think you ever did?
Of course, at this point, this all feels like promises of something good. But as the story progresses, with each new dialogue bearing the frustration of our main protagonists in an incredibly direct and confessing manner, exploring resentment with both how they are leading their lives and with the state of their marriages, the film succeeds to deliver the goods. We are left curious how the story will be able to capitalize on this wonderful development, and only after Jeff and Marty's encounter with Andy and return to Manila on the roof of the hotel, with their decision to abandon their lives, an incredibly brave and devastating decision, the movie hits its first home run and we are hooked. What appears to be the film's biggest strength, in my opinion, is its ability to keep the story moving constantly without changing the main direction, or in other words, without steering away from its main thematic focus. Constantly, we are introduced to new events, characters, as well as faced with the repercussions of our protagonist's decisions, all keeping the story engaging, fresh, and interesting throughout the entire duration of the film. But all this happens with the story firmly focused on its main theme of finding purpose in life. As we witness their dream project of building the sanctuary losing ground, which in a way serves as a symbol of their escape and impossible new life, their attempt to kiss the sky, we realize the writer will hold no punches in, most probably dealing with his own ideals, fully aware how reality is able to tear them to pieces, to challenge their validity, even if they are a result of a fearless decision. The film also, most definitely, hits the target with its ending, beautifully framing the entire struggle of our characters, not giving an easy or singular answer. I immensely appreciate the script and how it manages not to be judgmental, but also not getting sidetracked in idealizing the writer's own deep desires. Eric Lerner succeeds in not giving himself any slack, which is a feat in itself for any writer, especially one bearing his soul down so openly. While both the film's main themes, the disillusion with modern life and the insurmountable gap between the sexes and how they see the world and life, the writer's insistence to marry these themes into a singular existential struggle is really the script's biggest asset, and also a point of view that is perhaps the most challenging aspect of the whole story to the general audience. Maybe even more to female than to male audiences, as they are the struggles and realizations most men who reach a certain age have experienced, while most women never had a chance to witness in such a revealing manner and may find difficult to process. Roger Young manages to bring out the most from the story, especially through the performance of our main trio, William Petersen, Cole and Sherly Lee, as well as the performance of Terrence Stamp as Cozen. Subtle and controlled direction, accenting the emotions with the right pauses and close-ups, especially in those featuring powerful dialogues, bring out the most from Eric Lerner's text.
Keep talking to me.
It's pretty late.
That's what I want. Talk to me.
What do you want to hear?
Tell me what a man really wants.
I don't know about other men, but for me it's not that complicated. From the moment I open my eyes, all I long for is a woman's smile. I can't tell you how much that matters to me. That affirmation.
I see. I'm listening.
But it's the hardest thing in the world for a woman to give. Because then her love would truly be free. A woman's power comes from holding back. The moment she comes across with her body, she has no power left at all. But she can only hold out her body for so long. So she holds out something else to bargain with later. Her heart. But what does she want in return? I never knew a woman who knew. Or if she did, knew how to tell me. For if she did, I'd give it to her in a second. For her heart.
Would you give a woman what she wants? If you knew she wants nothing at all. But all she really wants is to give herself and not be taken prisoner. That she can come and then go. Could you give a woman that? Can any man?
The film is also beautifully intertwined with Leonard Cohen's musical numbers, really adding to the experience. They feel like a perfect fit to the specific scenes. Also, drive-by shots of Manila, as well as the choice to include the local village parade in the film, lend the film the necessary larger scope and real sense of different setting. A director more driven to put his own stamp on the film would most likely be detrimental to the final product. What perhaps is the only weak aspect of this picture is that the writer is perhaps too present in the story. His personal observations and trials perhaps spill too directly onto the characters and their decisions, and on repeated viewing, those dialogues and confessions may appear too precise, too sharp to feel natural and organic. In a way, the movie says too much. It gives such a perfect, complete commentary on the existential struggle of modern men that it perhaps feels overworded and would maybe feel more compelling if the commentary was more expressed through the plot development rather than through the very dialogues. Although personally, I'm not sure how different this story could have been told without impairing its initial first view impact. Kiss the Sky is a unique and important film, the majority of its strengths lying in the power of its script and the messages it is communicating, and in the direct manner it is doing that. It deals in essence with ancient struggles of men finding purpose in life, but here through the lens of modern white-collar existence and male and female dynamics. The incredibly confessional and challenging observations Eric Lerner brings out in this script are most likely unmatched in all of film history. I'm not saying there are no movies that deal with this theme, but none in such open and precise manner as far as I know, for better or worse. What perhaps is a hindrance for wider recognition of this film is that it doesn't boast direction that stands out, and in that sense it is difficult to gain the appreciation of film enthusiasts who are, in my opinion, more interested in how the film is shot and edited than in the raw story, again, for better or worse. While the general audience and majority is rarely interested into digging into films older than 2 years, not to mention films of past decades. Nevertheless, if you are lucky enough, and I say this in all seriousness, to stumble upon this review or the film itself, consider yourself fortunate to have had the opportunity to expose yourself to Eric Lerner's timeless commentary on modern existence of men and their relationship with women. Seek out this film. Based on all the info I was able to find, this film was only released on VHS and DVD for Region 1 territories and doesn't seem to be re-released since 2000. Despite that, it's still offered on Amazon and eBay from several different merchants, and it still should be relatively easy to acquire. For other territories, it appears it's still possible to find a bootleg copy online, but I think it's getting more and more difficult. A worldwide release, even barebone, really needs to happen. Let's hope the film ends up being rediscovered and properly re-released. Thank you for watching another Film Drifter review. Please don't miss out and check out the interview I was very fortunate enough to have with the director of Kiss the Sky, Roger Young. Great conversation. What you can expect for the next video is probably a similar review of, at minimum, a very interesting and obscure film, also featuring an interview with the director. In the meantime, I came up with another awesome idea for a retrospective of sorts, so as far as ideas for videos, my backlog is filling up. Stay tuned and drift well.
We just wanted to be free again.
We don't even remember what that felt like.
Sure, Yucatan. 72. We were never free, were we?
Not for 2 seconds.
We are so fucked up we can't even delude ourselves anymore.
I too was looking forward to paradise. Nice dry spot for rainy season. Now I have to go back to the monastery. Bad food, cold, damp.
Sounds delightful.
Sometimes it is quite delightful.
Cut the crap, Cozen. How exactly is it delightful?
Sitting in the meditation hall. For a second or two, the veil lifts. And there's the unexpected sweetness of no coming and no going. And all this dissolves into a single activity of the cosmos, beyond hope, beyond despair. And for an instant, we're not separate from this activity of the cosmos. We manifest our true nature. Everything else is just an idea that doesn't work. Does it, friends?